Barrier Jutsu. Alright, let's dive into Barrier Jutsu, because these things are literally everywhere in the Narutoverse. There are honestly a bunch of contenders for the strongest barrier ever, and each one has its own totally unique, absolutely wild flavor. First up is the Uchiha Flame Formation, a straight-up exclusive Uchiha technique. The way it works is actually really smart. You create these tiny chakra flames on each fingertip, slam your hands on the ground, and boom, a massive cylindrical wall of fire instantly pops up around whatever area you want to protect. Anything that even touches it gets roasted on the spot. The cool part is that it uses the ground as its catalyst to keep the flames going, meaning it burns insanely little chakra while still hitting ridiculously hard. And just so you feel how strong this thing actually is, this barrier blocked a full power punch from the Eight Tails. That thing is literally a mountain-leveling monster. Next is the Four Red Yang Formation. Only shinobi on the Kage level can even think about pulling this off. You need 4 users standing in a square, and together they raise this gigantic red barrier. It's said to be way stronger than the Four Violet Flames formation, and its standout trait is how insanely stretchy and flexible it is. When the 10 Tails fired a tailed beast ball at it, the barrier didn't break. It just warped its shape, redirected the entire attack upward, then snapped right back to normal like nothing ever happened. The users can even open gaps in the barrier to let allies through whenever they want. But the price is brutal. This jutsu drains so much chakra that at least 2 of the 4 users get heavily restricted from using other jutsu, even basic stuff like clone techniques. And finally, we've got the 6 Red Yang Formation, a technique I'm willing to bet most people have literally never even heard of. This is the absolute top-tier barrier jutsu, completely outclassing the 4 Red Yang Formation in both scale and durability. This thing is described as a barrier nobody can possibly walk through, and only people who've been blessed with 6 paths power can use it. You see the pattern here. Uchiha Flame Formation, while crazy strong, is obviously an Uchiha origin technique. At the end of the day, the user is still operating inside mortal level limits. 4 Red Yang Formation is a whole different story because now you're talking about 4 Kage working together. That's 4 of the strongest shinobi on the planet combining their power, but there's a huge catch: the cost. Maintaining this barrier drains so much chakra that even Kage literally can't use clone jutsu while holding it up. And that's exactly where the 6 Red Yang Formation just completely breaks every rule in the book. This jutsu exists in a totally different tier. The reason is simple. You straight up need 6 paths power to activate it. This is not something you can train for, not something you can learn from some ancient scroll. Some people might argue that the 4 Red Yang Formation, with the right lineup of 4 Kage, could maybe compete. But here's the problem. Even if you brought together the 4 strongest Hokage in history, they're still working inside the limits of Kage level power. 6 paths power is a massive leap into a completely different dimension of strength. When you're channeling chakra granted by the literal creator of ninjutsu, any comparison to mortal level jutsu becomes absolutely meaningless. Chakra absorption. Early in the series, this kind of ability was insanely rare, but as things go on, it basically becomes way more common. There are a few noteworthy techniques like Uchiha Return or Fudog Head, but the strongest stuff absolutely belongs to the top-tier monsters. First up is Wood Release, Wood Dragon technique from Hashirama. This thing is a gigantic wooden dragon that can wrap around an enemy or go straight in for a head-on attack, but its real, truly terrifying ability is how it sucks chakra like a straight-up vampire. It bites into the target and slowly drains their chakra until they literally can't use jutsu anymore. And to show you just how insanely strong this thing is, the dragon absorbed chakra from Kurama, a primordial tailed beast with basically unlimited chakra, and honestly, it can drain multiple tailed beasts at once. Next is the karma of the Otsutsuki. This mark lets the user absorb ninjutsu and completely shut them down. When Boruto or Kawaki activate karma, they can absorb literally any chakra-based jutsu, and the wild part is that it actually stores that chakra for later use. When the vessel's chakra gets drained so hard that they lose consciousness, the Otsutsuki inside can take over the body and use their full power. Momoshiki has pulled this move on Boruto multiple times, turning a regular genin into a straight god-tier threat in just a few seconds. And finally, we've got the Preta Path of the Rinnegan. This technique creates a full-body barrier around the user, letting them absorb any chakra-based attack coming from literally any direction. It doesn't just suck chakra from jutsu, it can straight up drain chakra directly from someone's body through physical contact. When Nagato used the Preta Path to absorb chakra from Killer Bee in his version 2 form, a state where chakra is overflowing everywhere, he not only shut Bee down completely, he also used that chakra to heal his own worn-out body. His hair shifted from white back to red, his whole body recovered, and even his damaged legs were restored. It was absolutely insane. Now, which one is the strongest? Wood Dragon is insanely powerful, no question. It's proven that it can drain chakra from tailed beasts, but it has one fatal weakness: the head. If the dragon's head gets destroyed, its absorption ability is totally shut down. Madara once wrapped Kurama in Susanoo armor to block the wood dragon from draining the Nine Tails. That alone shows that no matter how strong it is, the wood dragon can be countered with strong enough physical attacks or by using a chakra armor like Susanoo. And here's the important detail: Susanoo is technically a chakra construct, but the wood dragon still can't absorb it. That means its absorption power has very clear limits. Karma, though, is on a completely different level because it's tied to Otsutsuki tech. But it comes with a massive problem. Karma can turn the user into a vessel for an Otsutsuki. When your chakra gets drained too hard, you can literally lose control of your own body. Momoshiki even has to limit how much chakra he absorbs to avoid waking Boruto up, meaning that even when he takes over, he's still restricted. And here's the part people totally forget. If the vessel wakes up while you're using their body, you get kicked out instantly. Predapath doesn't have any structural weakness like the Wood Dragon, and it doesn't have any backfire risk like Karma. Its ability is to completely shut down every chakra-based attack from every direction at the same time. It can even absorb Senjutsu chakra, although doing that can literally turn the user into stone if they take in too much, but that's the user's mistake, not a flaw in the technique itself. In terms of pure mechanics, Predapath is absolutely perfect. The only way to deal with Predapath is to hit it with straight physical damage. So what's the conclusion? Predapath is the strongest chakra absorption technique because it has no structural weak spot, works on a wide area, and can theoretically shut down any chakra-based attack. But here's the question I want to throw at you. Do you think the Predapath can absorb something like Susanoo? Chakra flow. Alright, now we're talking about chakra flow, one of the most basic concepts in Naruto, but also one that can reach absolutely insane destructive levels. Chakra flow is basically how you channel your chakra into weapons, your body, or even transform it into a completely new type of energy. There are tons of classic examples like Asuma's chakra blade, one of the earliest introduced techniques, or the lightning chakra mode of the two Raikage, a straight-up overpowered form that lets them fight on par with the strongest shinobi. But there are two candidates that really sit at the absolute top of chakra flow. First up is Tenseigen chakra mode, a unique transformation only for people who possess the Tenseigen. To get it, the Tenseigen is an Otsutsuki dojutsu, on par with the Rinnegan in both power and origin. When Tonari activates Tenseigen chakra mode, he gains access to 9 truth-seeking balls, those black orbs that only someone with 6 paths power can create. And Tonari can pump more chakra into them, turning them into glowing cyan balls. He can make them into a shield, split them into tons of high-speed projectiles, or even turn a single ball into a decorative cage to trap Hinata. But the truly terrifying power of this mode comes from the Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion and Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. The first creates a massive silver storm that literally wipes out the moon's surface, and the second forms a giant golden sword that slices the moon in half. No exaggeration here, Tonari literally cut the moon in half. We're talking planet-scale destruction level power. And then we've got Baryon mode, a form that, the first time I saw it, I thought was literally the craziest thing Kishimoto ever wrote. Baryon mode works kinda like nuclear fusion, a total atomic reaction. Naruto and Kurama's chakra are consumed as raw material to create a completely new type of energy. The chakra boost here is so insanely strong it shocks literally anyone. Massive, unreal, over the top. In this state, Naruto's reflexes, speed, and strength are boosted far beyond Ishiki's level. And to put that into perspective, Ishiki is a full Otsutsuki, a being that's lived thousands of years with power that dwarfs every shinobi on Earth. But Naruto in Baryon mode literally caught Ishiki's black rods mid-air before they could even fire, dodge, and blocked his attacks like it was nothing. Here's the truly insane part. Because all the chakra is connected, just touching your opponent lets Baryon mode drain their lifespan. Naruto doesn't even need to beat Ishiki with raw strength. He just touches him and slowly burns through Ishiki's remaining life until there's nothing left in Jigen's body. So, which one's stronger? Tenseigan chakra mode can only happen if you're an Otsutsuki or have the Tenseigan, a super rare dojutsu only Tonari has in the whole series. You basically have to be born with the right bloodline and go through an insanely complicated process involving the Byakugan of Hyuga clan. In terms of accessibility, it's basically non-existent for normal people. Baryon mode, on the other hand, doesn't need a special bloodline or legendary dojutsu. Technically, any Jinchuriki with a strong enough bond with their tailed beast can pull it off. And that's exactly why I believe Baryon mode is the strongest chakra flow technique. When you use it, you're not just consuming chakra, you're burning the very existence of your tailed beast. Think about it. Kurama alone is ridiculously OP, half a fox that already wrecked the shinobi world, and now you're pooling all that raw, insane power and using it in just a few minutes. The sheer destructive force is absolutely terrifying. The user has to be completely focused. No unnecessary movements, no random thoughts, no sloppy actions. Every single move has to be calculated to keep Baryon mode stable. And if you hold it for too long, it slowly drains your own power and lifespan. But the risk is even crazier for the tailed beast. Once you hit the limit, the entire existence of Kurama could be destroyed. Kurama would die, taking all of its chakra and abilities away from Naruto. That's exactly why Baryon mode is only used once in the whole series. So why do I say Baryon mode is stronger? Because while Tenseigen Chakra mode can literally destroy planets, Baryon mode beat a full-power, complete Otsutsuki. And we're talking Ishiki, not Tonari. He's way stronger, and Baryon mode turned him into a completely helpless puppet. The lifespan draining ability through touch is basically a hack's power that no defense can stop, because it's not a physical or chakra-based attack you can block or absorb. It's a natural law forced onto your opponent. Tenseigen Chakra mode can slice the moon in half, sure, but Baryon mode can erase the existence of a god. Fuinjutsu. Now, the art of sealing, one of the trickiest and most complex branches of jutsu in Naruto. Sealing is all about binding, imprisoning, and controlling. There are a ton of crazy impressive sealing techniques, so let's check out a few of the strongest ones. First up is the desert-layered Imperial Funeral Seal from Gaara and Shikaku. This thing uses a massive amount of sand to cover enemies in layer after layer, then compresses them into a giant pyramid to trap the target. Sealing tags can be slapped on the pyramid to boost its power, or Shukaku can enhance the seal using jutsu covering its body. This creates a prison that's nearly impossible to escape. Next is adamantine sealing chains, the signature technique of the Uzumaki clan. The user creates chains made from their own chakra, usually emerging straight from their body. These chains are insanely durable, strong enough that even the Ninetales has to struggle to break them. And here's the kicker. The chains neutralize the target's chakra, locking it down completely. Even after Kushina's death, a tiny bit of her leftover chakra inside Naruto was enough to create chains that still suppress the Ninetales. Then we've got Karma. Yeah, it's technically a seal, but in some ways it's more like a storage device. And finally, we hit the Six Paths Chibaku Tensei, which I'd honestly say is the strongest Fuinjutsu ever in Naruto. This is a Six Paths level sealing technique, only usable by someone with Six Paths power, combining Six Paths yin and yang forces. Here's how it works. Two users with Six Paths yin and yang powers simultaneously place their palms on the target. The target then becomes a gravitational center, pulling up the earth and rocks around them to form a massive sealing stone way bigger than a normal Chibaku Tensei. This technique can seal a target's Rinne Sharingan and forcibly drain chakra from their body. Now let's talk about the real scale of this jutsu. Hagoromo and Hamura Otsutsuki used the Six Paths Chibaku Tensei to seal the Ten-Tails, the monster that basically created the entire ninja world, locking its body inside a newly formed moon. Yep, this technique literally created the moon. In the Naruto universe, the moon is actually a giant sealing stone holding the Ten-Tails. Centuries later, Hagoromo's spirit passed down the necessary seals to Naruto and Sasuke, and they pulled the same insane feat, resealing Kaguya Otsutsuki along with Black Zetsu inside a new moon in her core dimension. One technique has the power of a tailed beast, another is a sealing jutsu strong enough to control a tailed beast, and then there's the one that can seal a god on a planet scale. You see the point? No other sealing technique in the series can claim it literally created a moon. The only known way to break this seal is if someone with a Rinnegan summons the core out of the resulting satellite, and even then it's insanely difficult. Space-time Jutsu. Alright, now we're diving into space-time ninjutsu, one of the hackiest branches of jutsu in the entire Naruto universe. If someone has a space-time jutsu, you already know they're insanely OP. Kamui and Hireishin? Yeah, they're crazy strong, But there are even stronger techniques. First up, we've got Amano Tejikara from Sasuke Uchiha, a space-time jutsu powered by his Rinnegan granted by the Sage of Six Paths. Using his left eye, Sasuke can instantly swap positions with anything occupying space he targets. In combat, this means he can dodge attacks in the blink of an eye, swap spots with weapons like a sword to trap enemies closing in, or even transport other people. He can also fire an attack like Chidori and then teleport the opponent into it at the last second to guarantee a hit. Next is Sasuke's space-time Taijutsu, a technique without a specific name that lets him travel between different dimensions through his Rinnegan. This jutsu creates a twisting dark portal that anyone can step through. With it, Sasuke can move to and from dimensions he can pinpoint, giving him insane mobility and tactical control over space itself. Then we've got Otsutsuki Teleportation, a space-time jutsu used by the Otsutsuki clan. The user creates a tear in space that can instantly move anyone covered by it to a chosen location, including alien dimensions. An Otsutsuki can sync this technique with their Kama recipients, letting a member teleport to the host's location via the mark. Two Kama users can even combine their marks to create a rift that breaks through Fuinjutsu. Even if the target has no Kama, as long as the user can track their chakra, they can open a rift and pull them in, like when Ishiki teleported Kawaki using Naruto's chakra. And finally, we have Amano from Kaguya. When I first saw this, I thought it was one of the most broken abilities ever written in Naruto. Using her Rinne Sharingan, Kaguya replaces the world around her with one of her personal dimensions. Everyone nearby experiences the change in location simultaneously. Here's what makes Amano insanely unique compared to all other space-time jutsu. While most techniques move the user to a destination, Kaguya moves the destination to her. This one breaks all the rules. Moving entire dimensions like this takes enormous amounts of chakra, so only Kaguya can pull it off. Even she gets tired if she pushes it too much, but that's because of the scale, not weakness. For anyone watching from outside, Kaguya and everyone else just vanish from the previous dimension, leaving no chakra trace. People affected by Amano keep their relative positions across dimensions, so someone rushing Kaguya in one dimension is still rushing her in the next. Kaguya even has tactical control over where she and others appear in the new dimension. Now, with Hiraishin or Amano Tejikara, you're teleporting yourself and dueling a single opponent. With Amano you can literally call up an entire acid dimension or whatever, covering an entire army and wiping almost all of them at once. It's way cleaner and more insane. Yeah, Amano is the strongest space-time jutsu, Juinjutsu. Alright, now Juinjutsu, Cursed Seals, one of the darkest, creepiest branches of jutsu in Naruto. To make it easy to understand, we've got the Hyuga main family's Juinjutsu. This cursed seal is used by the main house to protect their Kekkei Genkai, the Byakugan. They stamp it on the branch house members so that if they die, their Byakugan gets sealed, making sure no enemy can steal their secrets. But it's not just a lock. The main house can torture branch members with it too. If a main house member performs a special hand seal, the branch member feels excruciating pain, stopping them from ever rebelling. And if the pain is intense enough, it can literally kill them by destroying brain cells. The cursed seal is applied on the branch house member when the next main house heir turns 3. For example, Neji got his seal at 4, Hinata at 3. The seal only disappears with death, so dying is the only way to be free. Next up is Orochimaru's Juinjutsu, a cursed seal based on transformation that he can slap on others for all sorts of purposes. Yeah, I'm talking about those marks he put on Sasuke, Anko, Kimimaro, and the Sound 4. To apply the seal, Orochimaru bites the recipient's neck, and the mark appears near the wound. The target passes out while their body either accepts or rejects the cursed seal. Orochimaru set the seal's compatibility at just 10%. If the body doesn't match, it dies instantly. If they survive, the recipient gets access to insane power from the cursed seal. And let me tell you, the stronger the seal, the stronger you get. But the catch? You gradually become Orochimaru's puppet. And finally, we've got demonic statue chains, chakra chains created via the outer path. According to Obito, this binding power he used is way stronger than Nagato's outer path. These chains come with a cursed seal that can suppress the power of tailed beasts and inflict insane pain on anyone caught in them. Obito can create these chains using black receivers. He implants one in each of his 6 paths of pain. By generating chains from a Jinchuriki's receiver and linking them to his hands, he can restrain and suppress the tailed beasts inside if they try to resist him. The demonic statue itself can shoot out chakra chains from its mouth. When Madara regains his Rinnegan and takes control of the statue, he creates massive dragon head-shaped chains that instantly wrap around all 9-tailed beasts' necks like collars and pull them into the statue. These chains can extract tailed beasts from their Jinchuriki and stop them from destroying their tailed beast mode. And honestly, this is hands down the strongest Juinjutsu in the series. You see Madara hunting 9-tailed beasts like their pets, and even if the chains are cut, they reconnect effortlessly. This is next-level binding power, something no other cursed seal in the entire series can even dream of matching. Medical Jutsu. Alright, now we're talking medical ninjutsu, a branch of jutsu that a lot of people sleep on because it's not flashy or explosive. But what's the difference between Yahiko and Tsunade? One dude dies from a single kunai, the other survives getting stabbed by 2 Susanoo swords. At the highest level, there are 2 insanely strong techniques, each approaching healing in a totally different way. First up, Katsuyu, immense network healing. This is a teamwork-based jutsu used by Katsuyu and its summoner through the strength of 100 seal. Here's how it works. Katsuyu splits her body into tons of tiny clones, each attaching to someone. The summoner then channels medical chakra through Katsuyu to the injured person, healing wounds, restoring stamina, and chakra reserves. This lets you heal a massive number of people at once, no matter how far apart they are. While doing this, the summoner is linked to Katsuyu, so they can communicate with the slug and even sense what it's feeling on the battlefield. When Pain attacked Konoha, Tsunade used this jutsu to heal the entire village while chilling in one spot. Thousands of people got healed simultaneously. Next up, Ninja Art, Creation Rebirth, Strength of 100 Technique. This is a forbidden technique only available to those who've mastered Creation Rebirth. It regenerates the user's body by massively accelerating cell division. But here's the crazy part. It's continuous and automatic. Any damage the user takes gets healed instantly, no hand seals, no conscious effort needed, as long as they've got chakra. Basically, the user becomes a walking, almost unkillable healing machine. This jutsu shortens the user's lifespan, but in return, it gives them basically immortality in combat. Tsunade even said that only medical nin who have mastered this technique are allowed to break the rule that forbids them from directly joining battles, a rule she herself set. That's why she and her student, Sakura, are basically the only ones allowed on the front lines. Now here's where it gets really interesting. We've got 2 completely different healing philosophies going head-to-head. Katsuyu. Immense network healing is all about massive scale healing. You can heal an entire army, a whole village, anyone in range of Katsuyu's clones. The strategic implications are insane. In a huge war like the 4th Shinobi World War, keeping your troops constantly healed and fighting can literally be the difference between victory and defeat. You're sustaining the combat power of your entire force. On the other hand, Strength of 100 technique takes a totally different approach. It turns one person into basically untouchable armor. And here's the kicker. It's completely automatic. As long as you've got chakra, you can't die. So which one's stronger? Both tap into chakra stored in the Strength of 100 seal, basically the same source. But they serve completely different purposes. If you're a general commanding an army, Katsuyu is the obvious choice. But if you're a frontline fighter facing opponents who can kill you in one hit, Strength of 100 is your lifesaver. And this is where I want to hear your thoughts. 'Cause this is one of the most dope debates in Naruto scaling. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's all about understanding the trade-offs and what kind of strategy you're prioritizing. Reincarnation Jutsu. Now we're talking Reincarnation Ninjutsu, probably the darkest branch of Jutsu in all of Naruto. And yep, of course, all Reincarnation Jutsu are forbidden. There are 4 major techniques here, each messing with reincarnation in a totally different way. First up, Orochimaru's living corpse reincarnation. Orochimaru cooked this up to chase his dream of collecting all knowledge ever, something no one could pull off in a single lifetime. This jutsu basically immortalizes your mind, moving it into a stronger body before your current host rots away. Do this over and over, and the user can basically exist forever, as long as they keep their host alive. But there's a catch. Orochimaru can only switch hosts once every 3 years, and when the 3 years are up, he's forced to move into a new body because the old one starts breaking down and rejecting him. To pull it off, he reveals his true form, this massive white snake made up of a bunch of smaller white snakes, leaving his old host behind. Then he swallows the new host, taking them into a separate mental plane, where he basically hijacks their mind. Orochimaru's soul dominates the new body, while the old host's soul is kept alive inside him, so in a way, they're still technically alive, but totally suppressed. Next up, we got one's own life reincarnation, a wild jutsu cooked up by Tsunaga-kurei's puppet brigade. Basically, the user sacrifices their own life force to bring someone back, using all their chakra as the medium. You can hit both living and dead targets with this. If it's a living person, it can save them from a situation where survival is impossible, basically bringing them back from the brink, but the user ends up totally drained. If it's someone already dead, the user straight up dies to trade their life for the soul of the deceased. No exceptions. Then we got Rinne Tensei, a next-level reincarnation jutsu via the outer path. This bad boy breathes life back into dead bodies, but at a huge cost, the user trades their own life. Using it, the King of Hell literally rises from the ground and spits out the souls of the dead. The limits are kinda mysterious, but at one point, Nagato resurrected a massive number of people who had died recently. While doing this, he gets seriously weakened, his hair even turning white from overusing his power. And when the jutsu finishes, the user is guaranteed to die. Oh, and it's not just revival. This jutsu can also turn a corpse controlled by Iodi Tensei into a real, living flesh and blood body. And finally, we hit Edo Tensei, the ultimate soul-binding jutsu. This technique traps a dead person's soul into a living vessel, bringing them back exactly as they were in their final moments, and they follow the summoner's orders. Tobirama Senju created it first, but later called it a Genjutsu. Orochimaru discovered it decades later and leveled up how it worked, while Kabuto Yakushi perfected it almost completely. Tobirama's version had 2 big drawbacks. The reincarnated souls were way weaker than when alive, and he could only control a few at a time. Orochimaru improved the power limitation, and Kabuto basically wiped out all the flaws, making the reincarnations almost as strong as when they were alive, and letting the user control as many as resources allow. Now let's break down the differences with other reincarnation jutsu. Living corpse reincarnation gives Orochimaru real immortality, but conditional. He needs a compatible host, and if the host resists, like Sasuke with his Sharingan, it can fail. Basically, it's a limited-use, conditional immortality. One's own life. Reincarnation is totally different. You literally sacrifice yourself so someone else can live. Rinne Tensei blows the other 2 out of the water. Nagato used it to resurrect all of Konoha after Pain's assault. Thousands of dead people came back to life. The scale is insane, unmatched in the series. But the cost? Absolute. The user is guaranteed to die, no matter how much chakra they have. This is literally forbidden, a true Genjutsu that Hashirama called a 6 paths forbidden technique. So yeah, these reincarnation jutsu are all dark, broken, and insanely powerful, but each comes with its own wild trade-offs. But Edo Tensei totally breaks all the rules of reincarnation. Kabuto straight up said it's the strongest jutsu in history, and honestly, looking at what it can do, it's hard to argue. This jutsu doesn't need the user's chakra to maintain, which means you can have an immortal army fighting forever with zero cost. The reincarnations have all the powers they had in life, including Kekkei Genkai and Kekkei Tota. They can heal themselves from any damage, and if the damage isn't too bad, they can keep attacking before fully recovered. They can refill their chakra reserves endlessly, fight forever, and pull off crazy physically or chakra-intensive jutsu without breaking a sweat. Kabuto even resurrected Madara Uchiha beyond his prime, combining the best traits from different points in his life. Madara kept the Hashirama DNA graft, so he could still use the first Hokage's abilities, and he got access to dojutsu he had abandoned in life. See the difference? It's one thing to bring back a person or two and pay with your life, and another to create an endless fighting force with zero limits. Kabuto rolled out dozens of reincarnated shinobi in the Fourth Shinobi World War, including legends like Madara, previous Kage, and even Akatsuki members. One guy literally made an army that could go toe-to-toe with the entire shinobi alliance. Bottom line, Rinne Tensei is more humane, but Edo Tensei, bro, that shit is insanely OP. Genjutsu. Alright, when we're talking about the strongest Genjutsu in the entire Naruto universe, there's really only one answer that makes sense: the infinite Tsukuyomi. Think about what a Genjutsu actually does at its core. It manipulates your perception, right? It traps you in an illusion. Now imagine a Genjutsu so absurdly powerful that it doesn't just trap one person, or a dozen people, or even everyone in a village. The infinite Tsukuyomi captures the entire world. Every single human being and animal on the planet gets caught in this thing simultaneously. We're talking about a planetary-scale Genjutsu that literally uses the moon as its casting medium. You need a Rinne Sharingan reflected off the actual moon to pull this off. That's fundamentally rewriting what we thought was even possible with Genjutsu. But here's where it gets even more insane. Most Genjutsu, even the really nasty ones, they mess with your mind for a few minutes, maybe torture you psychologically, and then they end. The infinite Tsukuyomi keeps you there indefinitely, while the God Tree literally drains your chakra, your life force, your entire essence over the course of years until you're transformed into a white Zetsu. You become a mindless husk, a drone, completely stripped of everything that made you human. And the whole time this is happening, you're living in a perfect dream, completely unaware that you're being consumed. Something like Kotoa Matsukami alters someone's thoughts without them knowing. And yeah, that's incredibly powerful for manipulating individuals. But compare the scale. Kotoa Matsukami affects one person and has a cooldown period of years between uses. The requirements to even cast this jutsu are ridiculous. You need either the actual Ten Tails, or you need to be Kaguya Otsutsuki herself, or you need to be someone like Jubidara. For short, you have to achieve the Rinne Sharingan. And let's talk about how difficult this thing is to counter, because that's where you really see the difference between this and every other Genjutsu. Normal Genjutsu. You can break them with pain, with disrupting your chakra flow, or with help from a partner. Even Tsukuyomi, which is considered one of the most powerful Sharingan Genjutsu, can theoretically be broken if you have a Sharingan of your own or if you're skilled enough. But the infinite Tsukuyomi? The only people who are immune are the dead, white Zetsu, anyone coated by black Zetsu, and Rinnegan users who can shield themselves and others nearby. That's it. Everyone else is completely helpless. You need a Rinnegan user combined with the chakra of all nine-tailed beasts to release everyone. That's not a weakness in the jutsu. That's an almost impossible requirement that ensures this technique is basically permanent unless you have godlike power. Taijutsu. When it comes to pure Taijutsu, the strongest technique in the entire Naruto universe is something that literally rewrites what we thought the human body was capable of. We're talking about the full 8 gates formation, and specifically the final technique that comes with it, Night Guy. This is the only taijutsu technique in the entire series that actually made Madara Uchiha, in his Ten Tails Jinchuriki form with the Rinnegan, admit that someone using pure hand-to-hand combat was the strongest opponent he'd ever faced. Guy opening all 8 gates is the single most devastating display of raw physical power we see in the entire series. This is a technique that takes the human body and pushes it so far beyond its natural limits that it becomes something else entirely. When Guy opens the 8th gate, the gate of death, his body starts evaporating his own blood from the sheer heat and pressure his chakra is generating. His aura turns red, his skin cracks, and he's literally burning himself alive from the inside out. But in exchange for that, he becomes fast enough to bend space itself. And then, his evening elephant technique creates air pressure so intense it manifests as elephant-shaped blasts that can devastate entire landscapes. But that's just the warm-up. Night Guy, the final technique, is on a completely different level. It's a single kick that generates so much force and speed that it creates a dragon-shaped aura of energy and literally folds space around the impact point. This one attack nearly killed Jubadara. It shattered his ribs and destroyed half his body. Now, some people might want to argue that other taijutsu techniques should be in this conversation. Maybe they'll bring up the Gentle Fist and its ability to directly attack the chakra network, or Lee's Drunken Fist, or even some of the crazy physical feats we see from characters with enhanced strength like Tsunade or Sakura. But none of those techniques come anywhere close to the scale and destructive power of the 8 gates. The fact that only Might Dewey and Might Guy have ever been confirmed to open all 8 gates tells you everything you need to know about how insanely difficult this technique is to master. Even Rock Lee, who dedicated his entire life to taijutsu and trained under Guy for years, could only manage 6 gates by the end of Shippuden. Even Kakashi could only open 1 gate. So when you're evaluating the strongest taijutsu in Naruto, there's really no debate. The 8 gates formation, culminating in Night Guy, is so far above everything else that it exists in its own category. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Fire Release. Let's kick things off with the flashiest fire attribute in Naruto. Yeah, there are totally a bunch of fire release jutsu out there, but let's be real. The strongest ones absolutely belong to the Uchiha, and I'm talking about 2 legendary names, Sasuke's Amaterasu and Madara's Fire Release, Great Fire Annihilation. Amaterasu is basically iconic. People call it Hellfire. These black flames that burn as hot as the sun and never stop until the target is completely gone. Sounds insanely busted, right? And honestly, on a concept level, Amaterasu is absolutely top tier. It pops up exactly where the user looks, which basically makes it almost impossible to dodge in most situations. And since only the user can put the flames out, Amaterasu gives off this totally unbeatable vibe. But this is where people mix up cool and practical. So what's the actual problem with Amaterasu? It's slow, like painfully slow. The Raikage literally dodged it. And when it first activates, it only hits one concentrated spot, one tiny focal point. It doesn't have any real area of effect. On top of that, the spreading speed is ridiculously slow. We've seen multiple characters take off their burning clothes, or straight up cut off the burning part of their body before it spreads. And every single use makes your eye bleed. This jutsu is basically an assassin tool, not a battlefield weapon. Now let's talk about Madara's Fire Release. Great Fire Annihilation. When Madara throws this thing out, he's not aiming at one dude. He wipes out an entire zone. We're talking about a massive wall of flames, wide enough to cover a whole forest, tall enough to look like a giant tsunami made of fire crashing down. And this is the core difference. Amaterasu is a precision strike, while Great Fire Annihilation is straight-up carpet bombing. When it comes to raw destruction, nothing even comes close to Great Fire Annihilation. Madara used this monster of a jutsu to literally burn down an entire army of the allied shinobi forces during the 4th Great Ninja War. We're talking dozens of ninja having to team up with water release just to block a tiny part of its insane power. Some people might argue that Amaterasu can't be put out, so in theory, it should be stronger. But nah, it can be sealed away. The same way you can seal any kind of jutsu or energy. Great Fire Annihilation doesn't need to be unextinguishable, because it's just way too big, way too fast, and way too overwhelmingly destructive. You don't worry about whether the flames go out or not when the whole battlefield is already turned into complete hell. And on top of that, look at the versatility. Great Fire Annihilation can totally be used to control the battlefield, split enemy forces, and create zone control. It can be comboed with other jutsu way more easily. It's basically the peak of what traditional fire release can reach. What about Amaterasu? Sure, Sasuke can control it with Blaze Release, Kagutsuchi, but that's an entirely different jutsu that needs another Mangekyo Sharingan ability on top. Base Amaterasu is basically a one-trick pony, even if that one trick is absolutely deadly. So what's the strongest fire release jutsu? Well, fire release in Naruto is honestly prettier than it is powerful. Kabuto literally blocked Amaterasu with a mud wall, while Tsunade was straight up wary of Madara's fire. You've already got your answer. Water release. When we talk about water release, we gotta talk about Kisame Hoshigaki and the second Mizukage. But if we're talking about the strongest water jutsu actually shown in the series, it's basically all Kisame. In Kisame's arsenal, there are two jutsu that are genuinely terrifying. The water prison shark dance technique and the water release. Great shark bullet technique. Both of them are deadly in totally different ways, but only one of them truly deserves the title of strongest water release jutsu. Let's start with the great shark bullet technique. This jutsu is insanely impressive as a concept. You create a massive shark made of water, and it can absorb chakra from the opponent's jutsu to grow even bigger and stronger. The stronger the jutsu used against it, the more dangerous it becomes. And honestly, in certain situations, this thing is a perfect counter. If you're facing someone who relies heavily on powerful ninjutsu, Great Shark Bullet will absolutely turn their own strength into a weapon against them. But here's the problem with Great Shark Bullet. It's still just a projectile, a straight-line attack. Yeah, it can absorb chakra and scale up like crazy, but a fast enough opponent can still dodge it. A smart opponent can simply avoid using ninjutsu and switch to taijutsu. It has counterplay. Now let's talk about the water prison shark dance technique. Kisame isn't just creating a shark or throwing out one attack. He literally turns the entire battlefield into a gigantic ocean, a massive water dome with himself right at the center. And here's the key point. This dome moves with Kisame. You run, it follows you. You try to escape, it completely surrounds you. This isn't an attack you can dodge or block. This is a moving prison, a battlefield that Kisame absolutely controls from top to bottom. It hits the most basic biological weakness humans have, the need to breathe. It doesn't matter how strong you are, or how many jutsu you've got in your arsenal. If you can't breathe, you die. It's that simple. And while the opponent is desperately struggling just to stay alive, trying to hold on to their last breath, Kisame is totally comfortable. He merges with Samahata, can breathe underwater, and moves freely to hunt down his target. This is straight-up tactical unfairness. Now yeah, Water Prison Shark Dance does have one weakness. It's not efficient if there are many opponents running in different directions. But here's the important part. In real high-level ninja battles, one-on-one fights are extremely common. And in those situations, Water Prison Shark Dance is absolute dominance. Wind Release. When it comes to wind release, this has always been one of the most loved elements in Naruto because of how sharp and totally deadly it is. And when we talk about the strongest wind release jutsu, there are two names you just can't skip. Naruto's wind release, Rasen Shuriken, and the Sand Village's wind release, Great Cast Net. First, let's talk about the Great Cast Net. This jutsu is insanely impressive in terms of tactical control. The user creates a whole bunch of razor-sharp wind blades that overlap each other, forming a massive net that slices through targets from every angle. Its strength is that it doesn't just attack one target, it controls the entire battlefield. Once you get caught inside this wind net, dodging becomes basically impossible because moving in any direction can absolutely get you cut. And when multiple ninja combine their wind release together, Great Cast Net can totally turn the whole battlefield into a deadly maze of slicing wind. This is the perfect jutsu for large-scale combat, where you need to control and restrict the movement of an entire enemy squad. But here's the issue with Great Cast Net. It's all about control, restriction, and creating danger zones. It doesn't have that permanent damage effect. It doesn't have that one terrifying thing that truly makes a jutsu nightmare fuel. You can get cut, you can get severely wounded, but a high-level ninja with enough durability can still tank the damage and survive. Great Cast Net is strong, absolutely, but it doesn't have that finality. Now let's talk about Rasen Shuriken. When Rasen Shuriken detonates, it creates a vortex packed with millions of microscopic wind blades, and these wind blades pierce into every single cell in the body, disconnecting them from the chakra circulatory system. The target loses the ability to create and mold chakra. This damage cannot be healed by medical ninjutsu. Tsunade straight up warns that if the damage is big enough, the victim might never be able to use jutsu again. Basically, Rasen Shuriken completely shreds the opponent. This isn't an injury you can just recover from. This is the kind of attack where even if you survive, you're totally done. Some people might argue that Great Castnet has better AoE and can hit multiple targets. And yeah, in a battlefield with dozens of enemies, Great Castnet has its advantages. But here's the kicker. By the time Naruto masters Rasen Shuriken, especially with Ninetales Chakra mode, he can spam unlimited Rasen Shurikens. He can create multiple at once. He can throw them, guide them remotely, expand them mid-flight to catch dodging targets. At that point, the AoE advantage of Great Castnet basically disappears. What really makes Rasen Shuriken the strongest wind-release jutsu is that it combines literally everything you want in an ultimate technique. It's got insane raw power with a massive explosion radius. It's precise, with sharp points that can slice through rock and straight up disintegrate targets. It's fast and accurate with remote guidance. And above all, it has that unique, irreversible damage effect that no other wind-release jutsu even comes close to. Great Castnet is a tactical masterpiece, perfect for wide area control in large-scale battles. But when you need absolute devastation, when you need a jutsu that guarantees your opponent will never fight the same way again if they survive, Rasen Shuriken is the only choice. Lightning Release. Lightning Release is known for insane speed and devastating power, and it's straight up the strongest of the basic 5 elements. When we talk about the strongest lightning release jutsu, there are 2 big names. Sasuke Uchiha's Kirin and the Raikage clan's lightning release chakra mode. This is basically a showdown between one-shot annihilation and sustained combat dominance. Oh, and what about Indra's arrow? Sasuke's ultimate attack that could go toe-to-toe with Naruto's 6 paths ultra big ball Rasen Shuriken? Yeah, we're not diving into that here, that's 6 paths level, a whole different league. In this video, we're focusing on jutsu that are actually accessible, stuff you can see in normal battles to keep things fair. Now, let's talk about Kirin. This is probably one of the coolest concept jutsu in the entire series. Sasuke literally draws natural lightning straight from thunderclouds to attack. And here's the core difference. Natural lightning hits the ground in a thousandth of a second. That's speed you literally cannot react to. Kirin is strong enough to obliterate a small mountain. In terms of raw destruction, Kirin is absolutely monstrous. But here's the big issue with Kirin. Setup time. You need thunderclouds to use it. If there aren't any ready, you have to create storm conditions using powerful fire release techniques. And after you use it, the clouds dissipate, which means you basically only get one shot in a battle. Sure, you could spam Amaterasu to keep making new clouds, but that process takes time. In a high-speed fight between top-tier ninja, time is the one thing you don't have. On top of that, because Kirin requires chakra to guide and shape the lightning, you still need minimum chakra control, and most importantly, it's a single-use ultimate move. Miss that shot, and you're totally done. Now, let's talk about Lightning Release Chakra mode. This is where things get really interesting. Instead of one big explosive attack, Lightning Chakra mode transforms the user into a complete combat powerhouse. It wraps your entire body in lightning chakra, boosting every single physical parameter. Strength goes through the roof. Your Taijutsu basically becomes ninjutsu. Speed skyrockets to the point where even a Sharingan can't track your movements. Only Minato's Flying Thunder God and Naruto's Ninetales Chakra mode are faster. Your defense becomes insane, with lightning literally deflecting most attacks on contact. And your nervous system gets a full-on stim boost, enhancing reflexes so much that you can dodge even Amaterasu using lightning release body flicker. And here's the key point. Lightning Chakra mode isn't an attack. It's a state of being. It's active throughout combat, constantly enhancing you in every possible way. So which one's stronger? Remember, Lightning Chakra mode is basically a massive buff. It's insanely strong because the Raikage himself is already a beast. The guy has huge chakra reserves to maintain the buff. His body is tough enough to handle the electrical armor. He's just that strong.
Kirin is strong because the attack itself is ridiculously powerful. Later, Sasuke becomes strong enough to actually summon natural lightning at will, but at the time he could use this jutsu, his eyes hadn't even evolved into Mangekyo yet. You already know what I'd pick. Earth Release. Now the most underrated element in the entire Naruto universe. Earth Release is where the real monsters live. We're talking about jutsu that can literally reshape battlefields, crush tailed beasts, and make physics itself bow down. Now, picking the strongest Earth Release technique is actually way harder than you'd think, because we've got two completely different beasts competing for the crown here. On one hand, you've got Onoki's weight manipulation techniques, which are basically reality warping hacks that let you control gravity itself. On the other hand, there's Kitsuchi's Earth Release, sandwich technique, which is pure, unfiltered destructive power on a scale that makes most other jutsu look like party tricks. Let's start with the weight manipulation duo. We're combining both the ultra-added weight rock technique and the ultralight-weight rock technique here because they're two sides of the same coin. Onoki can touch you, and suddenly you're carrying the weight of a mountain on your spine. We're not talking about just slowing you down or making you stumble. Your bones are cracking, you're getting buried into the ground, your entire body is shutting down from the pressure. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Onoki can flip that script and make himself lighter than air. This old man was flying around the battlefield like he had creative mode turned on. And we're not just talking about him making himself float. He lifted an entire island. An island. He made Gaara weightless to boost his speed against Madara. He flew straight into a meteor and stopped it with his bare hands. The strategic applications are honestly off the charts. You want to chase Onoki? Good luck, he's flying. You want to hit him? He's already dodged because he weighs nothing. You finally get close? Congratulations, now you weigh 3 tons and can't move your arms. It's the ultimate combo of offense, defense, and mobility all wrapped into one technique. But hold on, because we need to talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, the 2 continent-sized rock formations in the room. Kitsuchi's Earth Release, sandwich technique is pure devastation incarnate. When this jutsu activates, 2 massive rock slabs just materialize out of nowhere and slam together with enough force to pancake literally anything caught in between. And when I say massive, I mean these things dwarfed the demonic statue of the Outer Path. For those who don't know, that statue is basically the husk of the Ten Tails, and it's already bigger than most skyscrapers. This technique actually managed to temporarily trap the Ten Tails itself, the actual Ten Tails. Kitsuchi himself said this was his strongest technique, and when you look at what it can do, you understand why. The sheer amount of mass being moved, the speed at which those formations close in, and the crushing force generated is beyond comprehension. So here's the million-dollar question. Which one is actually stronger? Weight manipulation is very versatile and flexible. However, it has a fatal weakness. You need physical contact to apply it. Against someone like Madara or the Raikage who moves at lightning speed, getting that touch is nearly impossible. And moreover, if you want to fly, then your punch won't hurt because you're too light. But if you increase your body weight to make the punch hurt, then you become very slow. Therefore, you have to use it in coordinated combat to fully unlock its potential and power. Meanwhile, the sandwich technique can be used from range, doesn't require touch, and while it costs a ton of chakra too, you're getting that devastating power in a single massive attack rather than having to maintain it. As for me, I choose this jutsu as the strongest earth-style jutsu. You know, most battles in the Naruto era take place on the ground, and this jutsu truly dominates the battlefield. But you know what? I bet half of you are already typing about how I'm wrong. Change my mind in the comments below. Alright, now let's move on to combined nature transformations, which people usually call Kekkei Genkai. Let's start with Ice Release. We're talking about the Yuki clan's cursed bloodline, and when I say cursed, I mean people literally hunted them down and tried to wipe them out because of how terrifying these abilities were. Now, in terms of canon techniques, we really only have 2 main contenders to work with, and honestly, that makes this decision easier. We've got Haku's demonic mirroring ice crystals, which is probably one of the most iconic jutsu in the entire early series, and then there's the Ice Rock Dome of Magnificent Nothingness, which is pure defense. The anime added some other techniques like certain kill ice spears and crystal wall, but we're sticking to canon here because, let's be real, if Haku had actually used those ice spears inside his mirror dome, Sasuke and Naruto would have been skewered before they could even blink. The anime sometimes creates abilities that break the internal logic of what actually happened in the story. So let's talk about why demonic mirroring ice crystals is absolutely the strongest ice release technique. On the surface, it looks straightforward. Haku creates a bunch of ice mirrors, surrounds his target, and then attacks from multiple angles. First, let's talk about the speed factor. The official databooks describe Haku's movement between mirrors as light speed. Now, whether that's literal or just hyperbole doesn't even matter, because the point is he's moving so fast that to most opponents he appears to be in every single mirror at the same time. Think about what that means in practice. You're standing inside this dome of mirrors, and suddenly Senbon needles are flying at you from every direction simultaneously. You can't predict where the next attack is coming from, because as far as your eyes can tell, Haku is everywhere at once. Sasuke, with his Sharingan, could barely start to track Haku's movements, and even then it took him time to adjust. For anyone without a dojutsu, or some kind of enhanced perception, you're basically fighting blind. You know the attacks are coming. You just have no way to defend against them because they're hitting you from literally every angle before you can even process what's happening. But here's what makes this technique truly genius from a strategic standpoint. It's a complete prison. Once Haku has you surrounded with those mirrors, you're trapped. The mirrors are incredibly durable. They don't melt against standard fire release, and if you try to attack Haku directly, he just moves to another mirror before your attack even lands. You'd need someone working from outside the dome to have any real chance of breaking you out. And even then, Haku can just form new mirrors to keep you contained or to attack your rescuers. Now, some people might argue that the Ice Rock Dome of Magnificent Nothingness should be considered because it's pure defense, and it can withstand multiple explosive tags without taking real damage. That's impressive, sure, but it's a one-dimensional technique. It doesn't control the battlefield. It doesn't give you offensive options. Demonic mirroring ice crystals, on the other hand, is offense, defense, and battlefield control all rolled into one technique. The chakra cost is significant. Haku himself admitted he couldn't maintain it indefinitely, but that's actually a good thing in terms of balancing. If this technique didn't have that weakness, it would be completely broken. As it stands, it's already one of the most overpowered techniques in early Naruto. The only reason Sasuke and Naruto survived is because Sasuke developed his Sharingan mid-fight, and Naruto tapped into the Nine Tails chakra. Against literally anyone else, this technique is a guaranteed kill. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking about those anime-only techniques and wondering why we're not considering them. Trust me, if we open that door, the scaling gets messy real fast. Wood release. When it comes to wood release, there's no debate. Sage art. Wood release. True, several thousand hands stands alone, towering above every other technique. This is the jutsu that crowned Hashirama Senju, the god of shinobi, ended the Warring States period, and cemented his legend as the first Hokage. The sheer scale of this technique is almost incomprehensible. The wooden statue Hashirama summons dwarfs Kurama, the Nine Tails, who is already mountain-sized and capable of leveling cities with a swing of its tails. Even the complete body Susanoo, a skyscraper-sized chakra warrior, looks small beside it. When the statue moves, the battlefield itself bends to its presence. But size is only the beginning. Behind the statue, thousands of hands emerge in concentric rows, creating a divine, almost surreal image. The two main hands are clasped in prayer like a Buddha, a cruel irony given the destruction that follows. Each of those countless hands can strike independently, with enough force to pulverize stone, shatter defenses, and overwhelm enemies from every angle at once. Its versatility is what makes it truly terrifying. The statue can fight on Hashirama's behalf, shielding him from harm while he uses other jutsu. Its massive frame acts as an impenetrable wall, resistant even to tailed beast-level attacks thanks to sage chakra-infused wood. And unlike most colossal techniques, this one isn't slow or clumsy. The statue can detach from the sea of hands to move more freely, allowing it to chase down faster opponents. The requirements to use it are equally legendary. Hashirama had to enter Sage mode, perfectly balancing natural energy with his own chakra, a feat most shinobi can't attempt without turning to stone. On top of that, he possessed near-limitless chakra reserves and a life force so potent that his cells became the most coveted biological material in the shinobi world. Even Madara, with access to Hashirama's cells and Senjutsu, never replicated this technique at such scale. That's why this statue defines wood release. It's offense, defense, suppression, and psychological domination rolled into one. The moment it appears, the battle is already decided. Hashirama's true several thousand hands isn't just a jutsu, it's the ultimate reminder of why no one dared challenge the first Hokage. Lava release. So lava release is one of those elements that doesn't get nearly enough screen time, but when it shows up, it's absolutely devastating. We're dealing with molten rock here, stuff that can melt through basically anything, and the two main techniques we need to compare are both insane in their own right. You've got the Flower Fruit Mountain, which is Son Goku's signature move used by his Jinchuriki Roshi, and then there's the Scorching Stream Rock technique, which is more commonly seen but still incredibly deadly. The Flower Fruit Mountain is essentially creating a volcano on command. Roshi transforms into his tailed beast state, and then he just erupts. The explosion sends molten lava flying in every direction, creating this massive flower-shaped blast pattern that covers an enormous area. The technique specifically states that this lava can melt anything in its path, and when you're talking about a volcanic eruption level of heat and volume, that's not an exaggeration. The area of effect alone puts this technique in a tier above most other lava release jutsu, because you're not just attacking one target or one direction, you're basically turning the entire battlefield into a hellscape. Now compare that to the Scorching Stream Rock technique. This one is more focused and tactical. The user spits out a massive amount of lava that rapidly solidifies into multiple boulders while they're still molten hot, and these boulders get launched at high speed toward the target. The advantage here is precision and volume. You're firing off dozens of these molten projectiles in quick succession, covering a wide area, and because they're moving fast and there's so many of them, they're extremely hard to dodge. Each boulder can melt through most defenses on contact, so even if you block one, there are 10 more coming right behind it. But there's one thing that makes Flower Fruit Mountain so much more impressive. It requires Roshi to be in his transformed state, which means he's channeling Son Goku's chakra directly. This is a Four Tails-powered technique. This isn't something a regular shinobi could ever pull off, even if they had lava release. This is tailed beast-level destruction, which automatically puts it in a different category. The Scorching Stream Rock technique is powerful, don't get me wrong. It's versatile, it's effective, and multiple ninja have used it successfully in combat. But when you compare creating a dozen molten boulders versus creating an entire volcanic eruption, the scale difference is enormous. One technique could theoretically take out a small group of enemies or destroy some fortifications. The other one is an extinction-level event for anyone caught in its radius. If you're choosing the strongest lava release technique, you're choosing the one that can literally alter the landscape and force entire armies to relocate. That's Flower Fruit Mountain. And honestly, it's not even close when you factor in the raw destructive power and battlefield dominance it provides. Storm Release. Alright, Storm Release is one of the rarest Kekkei Genkai in the entire series. And when we're talking about the strongest technique, there's really only one answer that makes sense. Sure, Laser Circus looks absolutely incredible with those multiple beams of energy shooting out in every direction, and the ability to control their trajectory mid-flight is genuinely impressive. But when you stack it against Sage Art, Storm Release Light Fang, we're comparing a flashy light show to an actual speed of light death beam that can cut through anything. Let me break down why Light Fang is on a completely different level. This technique fires a thin, concentrated stream of light directly from the user's mouth, and here's the critical part that people sometimes overlook. It moves at the actual speed of light. The databooks explicitly state it's impossible to dodge, and when you understand what that means physically, you realize just how broken this technique is. Light travels at roughly 186,000 miles per second. By the time your brain even registers that Madara has opened his mouth, the beam has already passed through you. There is no reaction time. There is no blocking it. You either weren't in its path to begin with, or you're already cut in half. Now, some people might argue that because Madara used this technique after becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, it should be classified as a Six Paths technique rather than a pure storm release jutsu. But here's the thing that matters. The technique is specifically listed as Sage Art. Storm Release Light Fang. It's Storm Release enhanced with Senjutsu Chakra, which is fundamentally different from Six Paths power. Senjutsu has been around since way before the Six Paths stuff became relevant in the series. What Madara did was take Storm Release and amp it with natural energy, creating something that could function at a level beyond normal ninjutsu. Compare this to Laser Circus, which shoots multiple beams that can change direction and hit several targets. That's tactically useful, especially against multiple opponents, or when you need precision to avoid hitting hostages. But those beams are still energy projectiles that can potentially be blocked or avoided. They don't move at light speed, they don't cut through truth-seeking balls, and while they can pin down enemies, they're not instant kill attacks the way Light Fang is. The fact that Light Fang is described as impossible to dodge should really end this debate right there. Boiled Release. Boil Release is one of the rarest and deadliest Kekkei Genkai in Naruto, combining fire and water to create corrosive mist or scalding steam. And when we talk about the strongest Boil Release jutsu, we've basically got two techniques from Mei Terumi, the skilled mist technique and steam explosion. And honestly, this is totally not a fair competition at all. Steam explosion sounds impressive. You release a massive cloud of boiling steam around yourself, burning everything nearby. It's a defensive-offensive hybrid move, pretty perfect for close-range combat. But that's literally all it does. It burns things. That's it. In a universe where fire release can roast entire forests, a jutsu that only boils and burns doesn't really stand out. Now the skilled mist technique? This is straight-up nightmare fuel. Mei creates a cloud of highly acidic mist that can melt bodies and even break down chakra-based defenses. And here's the absolutely insane part. It affected Sasuke's Susanoo, the absolute defense that's supposed to be untouchable. What makes the skilled mist straight up the strongest boil release jutsu is that it attacks on such a fundamental level that most defenses simply can't handle it. Physical armor? Melted. Chakra barriers? Nullified. It doesn't matter how strong your defense is when the defense itself is literally dissolving. And the user can also adjust the mist's pH level, which means Mei has complete control over how lethal it is. She can make it safe enough to avoid hurting allies, or crank it up to melt everything in sight. So yeah, the skilled mist technique is absolutely the undisputed strongest boil release jutsu. Explosion release. Deidara's explosion release. Techniques embody his philosophy that art is an explosion. Two of his most infamous jutsu, C0 and C4, showcase radically different forms of destruction, sparking endless debate about which is stronger. C0 is Deidara's final trump card, a suicide technique unleashed when all else fails. He tears open the stitches on his chest to reveal a mouth connected to his heart, feeding it clay that transforms his entire body into a bomb. Chakra floods his veins, turning him into a living explosive. The detonation covers a staggering 10-kilometer radius, obliterating villages and reshaping landscapes. Its raw destructive power is unmatched. Nothing survives within range. However, C0's fatal drawback is that it kills Deidara too. It's a one-time, last-resort move with no tactical flexibility. Immense devastation, but zero survivability. In contrast, C4 demonstrates Deidara's genius. Designed to counter the Sharingan, it manifests as a giant clay clone that bursts into a cloud of invisible microscopic bombs. These particles infiltrate opponents through inhalation, entering the bloodstream. With a snap of Deidara's fingers, victims disintegrate at the cellular level, reduced to dust. Physical defenses, armor, and distance are useless once exposed. The psychological terror of dying simply by breathing elevates C4's impact. Moreover, it's versatile. Deidara can scale it down, as seen against Onoki, using smaller clay constructs with the same deadly effect. C0 embodies brute force annihilation, erasing everything in its path. C4 represents precision assassination, targeting individuals invisibly and leaving the environment intact. One is about overwhelming destruction, the other about unavoidable elimination. Which is truly ultimate depends on what you value, total devastation or guaranteed kill. Deidara's artistry wasn't just explosions, it was philosophy. Through C0 and C4, he proved destruction itself could be sculpted into different